when we say continuity or redundancy, I mean, that's got a lot of meanings too, right? I mean, there's, you probably define continuity in a different way than somebody else, right?
Yeah, and for me, I don't know, Jason, if you want to take that. Just for me, what I observed was business continuity right now was, how do I get 3,000 people, like real use case, another customer in Europe, it's an insurance company, right? They had typically 400 people that can access remotely. Suddenly, over the weekend, 3,000 people. How do you do that, right? And that creates a number of lessons and challenges, right? Like, you cannot procure 2,500 more laptops for corporate IT equipment, but you have to let those people work. So continuity. So here's a real case scenario, and this was very educational for me as well, because I spoke with the partner there, and he was telling me, he's like, Dimitri, this is where some of the things that are really, really nice in normal scenarios go out the window. You guys talk about, you have to make sure that every endpoint that connects to the corporate network is latest, greatest patch, and latest Windows 10 is a corporate IT device. That sounds perfect, except in this scenario where we sent 3,000 people overnight to work from home, you got to let them connect from whatever they've got at home. It could be a Windows 7 laptop that's shared with kids at home, whatever, right? My definition of continuity is using that is like, you still have to let that employee log in, connect, and work. Now, how do you do that securely? Now, they had a solution. They had a very interesting solution where you use effectively reverse browser isolation capability, where you render the work desktop via HTML5 on the client machine. So I can log in from the most virus-ridden machine into this network, as long as I have MFA, because if my passwords get stolen, and I can and the network, I can continue to do my work. I can do whatever it is that insurance companies do, right? But the point is, the admin at that company now knows that whatever garbage I might have on my dirty network is not traveling, is not traversing over, cannot possibly get into the corporate network, right? So that's my definition. That was, to me, a quintessential, example of like business continuity in an emergency time. Like, what do we got to do? Let's get practical. Drop the philosophy.
I want to toss just a quick plug out there. If you're listening and you just moved to the cloud, or a bunch of people in your organization moved to the cloud, we had an interesting conversation with Scott Jenkins from SonicWall last month. We actually talked about cloud access security. And if you think your cloud apps are secure after watching that event, it's on our YouTube channel, so please check that out. But you may find yourself humbled after what I know. I personally went and checked out my settings and was a little alarmed and got my poop in a group, so to speak. But yeah, if you're in the cloud, you may not actually be as safe as you think. Check out that. It is on YouTube. End plug.
So Jason, what's your view of continuity? How would you define it?
So the continuity, I mean, I think business continuity, like I mentioned earlier in the beginning, our concept of business continuity changed quite a bit, right? It's not that brief instance, single site where we just need to have some continuity, or even a data center going down. You still have a place where people are coming to work, right? You're still coming into the office. They're still using those infrastructures, and they're maybe connecting to a DR site. And if something truly drastic happened, with an organization, our whole concept of continuity now is, okay, I got to send everybody home, and so does everybody else, and I have to contend with all changes of organization, not just technology. It's the business process. It's everything across the board. Our version of continuity, like I said, it's changed drastically in that sense. But I wanted to touch on point on what Dimitri just said. When we were talking about VPNs, we're not really necessarily talking about site-to-site VPNs and even client-based VPNs anymore. We really have shifted beyond that in technology, and we're really more about how do we securely provide applications, whether it be over a site-to-site VPN, which is not likely, but through different tools and media that we have out there, reverse proxies and whatnot. And then you take the whole cloud aspect of it as well. All of those types of solutions are on the table and available for everybody to take advantage of. That it's the most secure way at this point, is to shift from that old concept of just allowing your BYOD device to have full access onto your network. Really don't want to go down that path anymore. We're trying to stay away from that.
Let me double click on that while we're on this, right? That is, I think, one of the pressing issues right now. Like, if you ask me, like, what should people worry about right now? And what I would worry about, right, is, if I was in charge of a network, is I'm connected from home right now. the easiest thing to do is just to give a customer, or to give a user, I'm sorry, a VPN access tunnel. And you know what happens is that with the most basic kind of easiest thing to do is this network here is now, congratulations, it's now an extension of your corporate network, right? And now anything that's going on here is an extension of corporate IT, and you don't want that, right? And this is where we start getting into those more so you're granting the employee the ability to connect and to work. But are you also building a full-on bridge for, again, for whatever garbage I might have here, right? If I have whatever teenage kids or something downloading Fortnite cheats, every one of those, which is a virus, right? But the point is like that, you don't want that. So how do you isolate it? And we can discuss, maybe later in the webinar, we can discuss some of the spectrum of solutions. But what Jason's talking about, like building a full tunnel and remote access, that's where like you got to start asking, like, do I need to give a full tunnel? Maybe I just do that reverse browser? Maybe I do per app granular control, right? And that's where that spectrum of like how paranoid, how secure you are, but you do have to be cognizant of the fact that with just building a tunnel, this is now your corporate network as well.
So Dimitri, on that topic, I mean, does it matter? You're really more focusing on the end user in the remote situation versus the type of business, or does it matter, right?
Yeah,
like if you're in if you're in the healthcare business or financial business or education, is it less about the vertical and more about the actual setup at home?
I honestly, I actually don't know because I don't know all the intricacies. I know at a high level, right? But it's not enough to actually differentiate. I look at it as like general issue, right? And for example, and a financial, anybody who deals with more regulation might be more sensitive to this, right? But there are ways of, like, I have another anecdote where there's another partner in the Midwest in the United States that shared with me that basically an insurance company, right? They closed down X number of offices and they have massive savings from rent, et cetera, but they sent everybody home. So the way that this conversation came up is I was discussing a particular use case scenario where I said, hey, I was testing the idea with the partner, and I was testing the idea of having a Wi-Fi island. I said, hey, what if we had very, very high value, but generalizingly low tech folks that typically work from the office, like for example HR, legal, right? They typically go into the office, they work from the office, but they deal with very, very sensitive data. And I was floating this idea with a partner. I said, what if for those customers, right, we have, for those users specifically, you gave them for example, an access point that can do all the security and build a tunnel. But the point is they get a corporate Wi-Fi in home, so their kids can't connect to the corporate Wi-Fi, but they're like as if they're in the office, and the security is provided through that. And that's when the partner said, like, Dimitri, that's like that's small, that's peanuts compared to what we're really doing. In that case of another insurance company in the Midwest, he said they sent hundreds of people home. They closed down the offices. They converted to 100% work remote, and they sent full on like enterprise grade, small but enterprise grade firewalls, et cetera. And they're like, it's a drop in the bucket from a cost for them, from a cost savings that they have from closing down the offices. But now they can also still have like a island of security inside the home network, and then they can do compliance, they can monitor the traffic, they can do all this other stuff, right? So but again, it's a spectrum of how far do you want to go. So coming back to your question, Nick, based on the vertical, this was an insurance company, so I assume they have a whole bunch of stuff that they have to comply with. It's worth it for them. Another company that might be dealing with less sensitive assets, where like a breach, okay, it's a high inconvenience, but it doesn't bring down the company, might want to just deal with VPN and endpoint suite, or something like that. Again, it's a spectrum.
So I just heard Dimitri say that we're not supposed to sell hundreds and hundreds of enterprise firewalls. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
This
but
is
honestly,
being recorded.
I try to. It's whatever makes sense. Like I want it to be resonant, right? I want to resonate. Like what makes sense? Because if I said that, oh, everybody has to have an enterprise, like, it's easy to dismiss. It's in some cases it makes sense, in some cases it doesn't make sense. At the end, we want to basically provide good security, where it just comes down to peace of mind, right? That you now have a extreme distributed enterprise, not just branch offices, like every single employee is a branch office. How do you deal with that, right? So you take all the learnings from branch office, from distributed enterprise experience, and you now expand it to every single employee effectively. it might just mean
Right.
software, or it might mean hardware.
So easy to use, easy to deploy, and highly secure. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's our end goal, right? Especially with the way that the world's ever changing and with all the remote users. That's kind of what that's the ultimate goal.
And the deployment right now in that scenario, the deployment is the key, right? The ability to, for example, and I'm, Cam, I'll copy you a little bit. This is a little bit of a plug here, right? But just the ability to deploy. So one of the things that we've done recently is zero touch deployment, right? Like you can literally do a office in a box, send it off, and never have to visit the site, and just tell people, plug it in, walk away, please, right? And then it goes to the cloud, does a bunch of auto magic, and then from an admin perspective, they're like, boop, there's the location, apply template, done. Now but there is no truck roll, so to say, right? Anyway, went a little bit into the different capabilities, but the question was like how to provide different security. There's a different spectrum, and there are different tools. So you just got to do what makes sense for the situation.